Hey YouTube, welcome back. Let's do a map real quick. This is about day 3. This is Monday early afternoon, and I'm about to start streaming, but I wanted to put the video at the very beginning instead of waiting until the very end. So, we're on Monday. We are level 93, playing some explosive trap on an Elementalist. And I wanted to give you an update of how the build looks, how the build feels, and what the gearing progression has been up until this point. Man, I wish that I didn't get porcupines in every single map. Listen, we're gonna make this happen. So, we are playing an Elementalist as a trapper instead of playing as a saboteur like normal. One of the reasons that I wanted to go as an Elementalist is you get 60% increased area of effect, and that turns out to be pretty good because the AOE that otherwise is normally on the saboteur node, it got put onto the one node that as a trapper in the saboteur ascendancy you don't really take. So I wanted the regen if I were a saboteur, and I would want the blind if I were a saboteur, but I kind of want all the things if I'm a saboteur, and I only get 4 ascendancy points instead of all of them. I need like a super uber lab in order to get 5 ascendancy, 5 labs, so I can get everything that I actually want. It's a rough place to be. In any case, we got our trigger weapon. We have another 6 link, so we're using a carcass jack now as well. And things are going pretty well so far. I don't know exactly what my damage is, but I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to show you how to calculate it when I pull up the POB in just a second. So, my damage currently, it's enough. I'm not particularly concerned about it. I'm concerned about every map that I do having porcupines in it, but that's kind of a different story. So, I'm going to show you how to calculate the DPS for Explosive Trap. I'm going to walk you through the characters. And I figure that because I'm playing an SSF, and I know not everybody plays an SSF, maybe a quarter of the people on Twitch who talk to me end up playing an SSF, but there's still a lot of people out there who just don't, right? So I wanted to talk about how I prioritize my gear and how I'm using the new Echoes of the Atlas expansion in order to, get more of the gear that I want and prioritize those sorts of things. Let's toss some bear traps out. Oh, he triggered immediately. Oh, my sulfite went up because I completed a map and I have Echoes of the Atlas and I get 500 sulfite for completing a map. Oh man, what a great time to be talking about Echoes of the Atlas. All right, in any case, I wanted to talk about what stats my gear has, why I'm prioritizing those, where I'm getting them from, and what kinds of decisions that I'm making with the new skill trees on the Atlas. So, I'm not going to full clear this map, because I think the intro is pretty sufficient at this point. Let's go ahead and jump out then. So I actually have a list of things, and let's talk about this real quick, all right? So if you didn't catch the first video, you can watch that on YouTube, you can see exactly what's going on. But I made a list of what my gear was and what it is now, right? So, my helmet, unfortunately, has never been upgraded, because it's trash. All we're looking at right now is a helmet with 81 life and a couple pieces of resistance on it. And everything else has been upgraded. But this thing, unfortunately, maybe it's with me for the long haul, perhaps. But so our gloves, we started out getting some essence gloves while leveling. They had like a 50 life on them or so. We ended up just finding a pair of gloves that have 100 life on them. And ultimately, the next progression beyond this is looking for incursion unique gloves. So we want the gloves that say your cast speed applies to trap throwing speed. And that is Architect's Hand, and maybe someday, if we get really lucky in SSF, we can upgrade those to Slave Driver's Hand. For our boots, we had some magic boots with only 1 line of text on them while leveling. Now we're using 100 life that we found from Ritual. I think they're double tier 1 life rolls, and then we crafted 24 movement speed on them. For our weapon, I think like caster weapons are so awesome. Like you can find them from Incursion, you can find them from Delve, you can find them all over the place. But finding a good weapon is just a matter of knowing where to look, honestly. So for our weapon, we had a Topatante hybrid prefix. That's % increased fire damage along with flat fire damage spells. We had that for a long time. We couldn't really find anything to upgrade with it. Before I found the trigger suffix, I had crafted trap throwing speed on it. But ideally, I would multi-mod and do both of those things. I would have trigger and trap throwing speed on my weapon. So I upgraded here. I'm currently using something that has a low fire damage spells, some crit multi, and then we did try to prioritize getting trigger, so we had that as well. For a belt, initially we had a rustic sash with like 90 life on it. Because we're playing explosive trap is fizz converted to fire, so the rustic sash still helps us. we had a Stygian Vise, and then ultimately we upgraded to a Stygian Vise with an Essence of Zeal on it. So this is what my belt currently looks like. This is 90 life. It has no res on it or anything, but it does have trap and mine throwing speed. This is a kind of low roll of Essence of Zeal, but it's still pretty good for me. So it just means that I get to throw my traps out faster. Traps, by default, have a lower throwing speed than mines do, because generally you're only throwing out 1 mine at a time. But with traps, you're throwing out 3 traps at a time. That's kind of the difference, and that's why our trap throwing speed currently looks like maybe about 0.36. So we're throwing just over, sorry, I guess we're throwing just under 3 times per second. So for DPS calculation purposes. For a body armor, we had a 5 link from Harvest. It gave us something that let us 5 socket an item and then 5 link an item. So we're using that for a while. And then we had a 6 link drop from a Geomancer's Incubator, which was awesome, I guess. It was supremely cool. We could have gotten this from a div card. There's a lot of new div cards that have been added to the game that give you a 6 link item or maybe a 6 link influence item, some kind of thing like that. But then ultimately we found a Carcass Jack and got extraordinarily lucky by 6 linking it in like 20 fusings or so. So I wasn't planning on having this kind of AoE, but now that we got our Uber Lab done, and now that we also have a Carcass Jack, this is what our AoE looks like in our hideout, and it's quite large. There we go. It kind of covers the whole screen, and it does what it needs to do. Remember that while we have our trigger socket spell when you use a skill, if we're throwing things, our Wave of Conviction goes off. If our Wave of Conviction hits a unique enemy, because of our Ascendancy here, we lose some of our AoE, but we gain 30% more damage. So that really skyrockets it. It's very, very nice. For our rings, amulets, I guess just our rings and our amulet, we haven't really found any upgrades. It's kind of pathetic at this point, but we did prioritize getting minus mana cost. This is a craft that you get from Elrion if you're doing those betrayal missions with Jun. So that allowed us to drop our mana flask and drop clarity. So now we're currently using Herald of Ash, Skitterbots, and Flesh and Stone. I would consider using Vitality as well, but I think my regen's good enough. So I'm feeling pretty good about how enormous my AoE is on Flesh and Stone. If you see the big yellow circle around my character, because I have so much investment into AoE on this character, just because that's what we are as an Elementalist, right? But what else is here? Our shield just has 90 life. I would look for a shield that has maybe +1 to all Fizz gems, all Fire gems, all Spell gems, something like that, with 100 life, or perhaps using Lionized Remorse just for the extra 200 flat life that you get from having something like that. I know that there's other guides out there for Explosive Trap. I love Octavian's guide. His guide is a little bit different. It loops around the bottom of the tree. It picks up Acro, Phase Acro, it picks up Wind Dancer, and then it pats over to Constitution. I like his build a lot, but I just happen to be choosing different things here. So whereas normally you could use your glove slot in order to get Fizz converted to fire damage and then use a Chernobog's Pillar, which is a great choice. Don't get me wrong. I just happen to be, you know, I'm an Elementalist. I'm starting on the top side of the tree. I want to be an old Golem Commander, and I think even though I do have Fizz converted to fire available to me as a glove craft, and I have Chernobogs here, I think I still want to be using Avatar Fire and use that route instead. I've looked at a few skill trees for myself that could convert using this, because Explosive Trap is a fire spell. You know, you can't use this to convert Tectonic Slam because it's an attack, but you can use it if you really want to convert 25 Fizz to fire on a spell. So I looked at that. I'm going to opt out of it. Maybe I'll revisit POB at some point and figure out something else, but I kind of like what our skill tree is looking like at the moment. Yeah, maybe even crit nodes like this aren't really needed once you start getting better gear. But as it stands, my gear is pretty lackluster, so I think I like what we're looking at right now. Flip back to this real quick. So in terms of gameplay, I guess I should talk about jewels real quick, shouldn't I? So currently we don't have any jewels on the tree. We have one Abyss jewel in our belt with life and crit multi on it. But we want jewels that have trap throwing speed as much as possible. And then some kind of life, maybe some kind of damage to go along with it. This trap throwing speed becomes a lot less important if we can get our incursion gloves. So really a lot hinges on the incursion gloves. It's the Architect's Hand, and then you can upgrade those to Slave Driver's Hand. If we get that, prioritizing this becomes much less important. So in terms of gameplay, I love what's going on with Echoes of the Atlas. I think it's really fun. Making decisions and choosing what you want to engage with instead of, you know, just rolling with the punches otherwise. So I'm prioritizing some things and I'm not prioritizing other things. So for me, I'm delving. Yeah, I'm trying to get like Nico Sulfide. For anything that says contains fire items, this could be a curse on hit ring. This could be a fizz taken as fire helmet, or it could just be a new weapon that I get to use for my spellcaster here. For Legion, I want splinters. I'm going to use the thing that says any one splinter that drops has a 1% chance of dropping as an emblem. I'll be targeting that. And then I want Timeless Tools, and if I can, I would love to get Divergent Berserk in order to get Chainbreaker, Akoya, using Rage, using Berserk, having more action speed. This would be amazing for me if I could build this in. And then for Incursion, I'm prioritizing this for the Trap Room and the Unique Gloves. I know some people don't like Incursion, they don't feel like they want to slow down and read the room and learn what's going on, but really, the stuff that's been added to the Atlas skill tree from Echoes of the Atlas, this expansion here, it makes it really easy to navigate Incursion, and I'm really enjoying it. I like it a lot. So the stuff that I'm not prioritizing as much, I don't like Metamorph. I don't really pick up the eyeballs or the brains that drop. Yeah, I'm probably losing an Exalt here or there, but it's kind of a pain, and I already feel like I engage with so much as a player, so I just kind of skip this. Breach, it's fine, but I'm not taking anything on the Atlas skill tree that enhances it. Blight, I do them, they're fine, but I'm not using anything to enhance it. And Bestiary, well, every time that I have a league in SSF, I kind of feel like Einhard just kind of gets left in the dust. He's got his little missions over here, and I do everyone else's missions as soon as they come up. Einhard's just kind of sit there, and I feel bad about it. Poor Einhard. Alright, so maybe I'll do some of that later, but for right now, we're looking at 3 more Conquerors, and then we'll do our first Awakener, which will be Awakener level 5, I think, once we pop our Watchstones back in. We have 74 completion, so we're not quite over the hump of 100. Remember, once you get to 100, it's a 100% chance for any map that drops to drop 1 tier higher, which is just buttery smooth when it comes to SSF Atlas progression. So, having a lot of fun right now, not pushing too hard, but we are level 93. It's great. So, somebody in chat brought this up the other day, I apologize. I'll link this in chat right now. I do have an Atlas guide that was updated for last league. It's an Atlas guide about how I personally go through the Atlas. It's more of a walkthrough than a guide. I feel like there's always room for more guides to go out there. I'm not planning on updating that, but I would like to hear from you if you are into like having Atlas guides or having Atlas walkthroughs or knowing more about how that kind of stuff works, or maybe how I approach it. So I'll link it in the comments below of this video. If you are someone who would like to see that updated, the only thing that's really changed for like prioritizing how to get to your first Awakener is the names of the maps. Everything else about the Atlas is the same as it was last expansion, but if you have any kind of feedback for that, I'd like to hear it. As always, comments about the explosive trap or what you'd like to see or what kind of questions you have could go in the comments. If you want to watch live at Twitch, I'm about to go live after I post this video, so that'll be twitch.tv/ParryThePig. On YouTube, I need to get better at outros, but liking and subscribing is appreciated. It means a lot to me. But until then, we'll see you next time.